Perfect. Hello, everybody. I will add the meeting notes as a message on chat. If you can kindly put your names to there, that would be perfect. Before we start, are there any announcements that you want to share with us? Okay. So we can start with the first issue. Bring back clone file on macOS X. Node.js performance repository, the issue number 110. Matthew, it appears that Matthew opened this. Does anybody have any knowledge about this issue?
As far as I can see, this has been reverted. This was reverted in libuv, so I think we have to work with libuv to bring back this feature, I guess.
Yeah. I think we can start. Like, I tried reaching out to them a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't follow up with it. So I think we can tag the libuv team into issue and remove this from the performance agenda, because that's mainly a task that needs to be done from the libuv repository.
Understood. So there's nothing much Node can do on this front. It's entirely dependent on libuv, I guess.
Okay. So I just removed the performance label and let me take the notes. Okay, so we can continue with the next issue. If there is not, if there's anything that you want to add to this issue. Okay, so issue 106, performance of Node FS. I added this issue to the performance agenda. There are, I think, 5 or 6 open pull requests on this right now. Most of them, in the past couple of days, most of them got merged, but there's still pending ones. I think the remaining ones need some help. If anybody wants to contribute and write some C++, I think this would be a good idea. And after the sync methods, we can continue working on the promise APIs.
To be honest, regarding this thing, for me, it's kind of interesting that it is something in C++ world of Node. And I saw that you in Twitter also, you wrote if somebody wants an onboarding on C++ part of Node, that he can make an appointment with you, basically. So
Yes.
the question is, to be honest with you, one thing what makes me hesitate to participate is, first of all, the other pull requests which I open, and it's kind of like feeling like there are risk of getting stale, and I don't want to get them stale. But on the other hand, I would really like to participate also in the C++ part of Node. I mean, I'm not a C++ expert, but I mean, it's the basics I can. So
So you don't have to be a C++ developer to change these lines. So I basically added this to-do list to onboard more C++ developers to the Node.js project. So these are all small tasks that need to change a couple of lines and also create like a benchmark and then push it. The issue is that right now we don't have enough C++ reviewers, and the existing collaborators does not feel safe about approving PRs that they don't have any knowledge on, which is, I guess, logical. But yeah, so if anybody wants to, so by the way, in the past 2 weeks, I did around 30 or 40 different onboarding calls with different developers. I like invested a lot of time on it, but if Aras, if you want to get onboarded to the C++ side, I'll be more than happy to onboard you, because I know that you're interested in this area as well. But yeah, there are still some remaining tasks that needed to be done, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. There are lots of things that can be done for the Promise API as well. For example, whenever you whenever you call fs promises read file function, it opens the file, which is a C++ call, and then it reads a file by chunk for every C++ JavaScript communication, and then it closes the file. So there are lots of files and lots of crossing the bridge between GS and C++. And if the file size is too big and the buffering is not enough, then it increases incrementally. For the really big files, it takes a lot of time due to this crossing of the bridge. So I was mainly leading this, but if anybody wants to take over or wants to join my quest about improving the performance of Node.js, I'm more than welcome to onboard anybody and help them figure out the tasks and issue.
So one of the problems that I had seen in trying to reduce the callbacks between JS and C++. So I had seen when trying to implement the similar thing for blob. So creating a blob from a stream from a blob, right? That also has a lot of C++ to JS transitions. So one of the things that I was getting stuck on was you have to queue the microtask inside the promise, right, in order to keep the C++ part asynchronous. So there I was facing some issues with pointers, right? So the pointers lifetimes were not coinciding, right? So that is one of the caveats, I think. If somebody could implement, we can see, but that is one of the caveats to be warned about, I guess.
Is that pull request still open, by the way?
Yes, it is still open as a draft. Yeah.
Okay, so if you need any help, I'll be more than happy to help you on it. So yeah,
Sure.
let's follow up after this, and then I can help you with that task.
Absolutely.
And if you are more interested in learning and reviewing C++ codes, please join the CPP-reviewers team. You don't need to do anything. I can also add you to that team, because we need more C++ developers, and most of the time, what Aras said is correct. Most of the pull requests go stale because no one reviews them. So I really appreciate if you could do that.
Yeah, I can give it a try, but mostly C++ is quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Like even with the changes are being small, because people see it's frightening. No one reviews it, and it impacts the whole project because no one leaves a review, and then I have to wait 7 days to land that pull request because the only person that reviews it is like Joey or Card, QARD. So
Get
so
your
yeah.
point. Yeah, I guess incrementally I can try giving a look. Sure.
Okay. I've updated the note. So if there are no comments, then we can go to the next issue. Fast path for Node application, which is issue number 90. I believe this is an issue opened by Vinicius. Does anybody have any knowledge on this that they want to share? It seems this is a pretty small, it has pretty small impact. and that's why maybe it didn't get implemented yet.
If I read this correctly, it is hard to understand what the actual issue is. Is it the issue that we have this additional check if in process emit warning also, or
yeah, so like it's mostly around whenever there is a deprecation of an API, it costs performance because it throws a console message and we keep track of it. So basically, Vinicius recommends that instead of emitting a warning, if there is a no deprecation flag is passed, then we don't do anything, which provides a fast path to avoid those sorts of things. And Adu commented on it, Adu95. I'm not sure it's relevant to spend any time optimizing deprecated features. If focused on performance, they should use non-deprecated APIs, which makes sense, and I kind of agree with it.
Maybe we should build this emit warning function on startup also to avoid that it is based on these.
Yeah, but the idea is that emit warning will only execute for people that use deprecated features, and they're going to be removed from the API. And because they're deprecated, we will never optimize those kinds of functions. So I don't think it's a good idea to optimize a non-optimized path for throwing warnings. So I recommend removing it from the agenda and closing the issue as per Adu's comments.
Let me see. Adu wrote, I'm not sure if this is relevant to spend any time optimizing deprecated features. Yeah, but I agree with him.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody wants to optimize that, it's free for them, and this person likes it to optimize, why not? But it doesn't seem to be. I mean, we deprecated it, so if you change anything in there and then suddenly somebody works based on, maybe we break user land because this deprecated function has a bug or something like this, then people will complain also. Yeah, why did you optimize it, and etc. etc. So maybe not touching anything of this deprecated code is the best thing and what you can actually do.
Rafael came. Hi, Rafael.
Hello, folks.
Nice hat. So
It's mute.
I removed the performance agenda label and closing the issue as a close was not planned. Are we in consensus towards that action?
Rafael, if you may want to know, it's about this deprecation warnings and deprecated functions that they are not optimized. And the question is like, should we invest resources in that? And
I remember that. I believe that, I mean, considering this is definitely not a hot path, and I think to optimize that in order to make non-significant change and improve the performance, we will spend a lot of time. If someone wants to invest on that, that's fine, but I don't think we bring any no performance more, I mean, than 5% in the end of the day. So yeah, I'm agree just closing it.
Okay. So let's continue to the next agenda item. Performance of what readable stream read, issue number 82 of the performance repository. Devadre opened the issue. Would you like to take over the stage?
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't able to do much of an investigation, but most of the things that I tried, right, ultimately ended up breaking some web platform tests, right? So it's quite difficult on that front, doing so, because the read function, most of the which streams functions, they follow quite long-winded paths, and each of the steps are required by the spec, right? So even removing one of them, you have 10 broken tests, right? So that is a tricky scenario. So yeah, it requires a much deeper investigation, I guess. But yeah,
that's pretty much the state of fetch web strings in the end. It's just following the spec. If you want to optimize it, you need to move it to the C++ layer. That's all. I know that we do a lot of mocking, patching, or things that are not good for performance in terms of creating transferables. When I did the first research, it was like consuming 30% of the performance. We could optimize up to 30%. But I remember someone raised a pull request and I didn't measure after that. So
yeah, so should we remove it from the performance agenda and keep the issue open?
I think there might be ways to improve, but yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, quite tricky.
Okay. The next, we can continue to the next issue if there isn't any other comments on this one. So the next issue is make callback is very slow. Issue number 24 on the performance repository. Robert opened this around, so I guess. I added this to the agenda to attract some attention from the folks that know about this, but I didn't get any feedback or some thoughts on it. I recommend just removing this from the performance agenda, and if there are more advancements on it, then we can add it back and discuss it.
I think the issue is that Head is not here, or how his nickname is pronounced. I mean, he was proposing, I could be wrong, but once this blah blah blah, this pull request is merged, we can probably rewrite make callback to use async context frame, and it's what we have as a last remark regarding this. So I think it needs some. How should I say? I think what it needs is some proof of concept, which is basically implementing it. So to know if it's faster or not, I think.
Yeah. Any other comments about this issue? Okay. So that was the last item on the agenda. Are there any questions, concerns that you want to share or need help with?
Yes, I would like to annoy you with my hide stack frames pull request. Also looking at Raphael regarding this. I know it got bigger than I actually expected. And it was also a lot of time consuming to figure out what is the best thing, because I mean, sure, people don't want to change their programming behavior, and the easier it is, the better it is. But the problem is that in this hide stack frames thing, I mean, I think I described it properly in my initial post regarding this and the pull request, what the thoughts and what the background is about this capture larger stack trace and how this is actually filtering out stuff. And I'm personally, I don't like it that much, this implementation, because it has not something like inline in C++ where you just write inline and then the issue is gone. So we actually kind of like playing around with the stack trace and capture stack trace function for errors. And sure, it is, how should I say this? The issue comes more from stuff like if it is twice called, so if you have a function which is wrapped in hide stack frames, which calls another hide stack frames function, which makes it uglier, so to say. And for this, I tried to implement a proper solution, let's say it like this. Maybe it needs somewhere to be documented properly if you want to go on with this. So because I don't expect that somebody will go to this pull request of mine and then look what the thoughts behind this was. So probably it needs some place where I should document what the thought behind this is. If you could give me the feedback where I should put it, it would be nice so that I can then just document it. But on the other hand, if you don't agree with this solution, then it is I mean, documentation is always pain. So looking forward for your feedback.
I have this pull request on my backlog for quite some time, but I'm working on. I was working on security release and then the Node.js 21. So I think I don't have bandwidth to do that this week, but I'm planning to do it anytime soon. The only thing that, if I remember correctly, was that you have measured the performance by running your micro benchmarks, right? And it shows like we have improved the performance by X%. However, when we have discussed errors a long time ago, a lot of times, and the problem is that sometimes the performance does not show in micro benchmarks, or the performance regression does not show in benchmarks, because once you run micro benchmarks, V8 will understand it enough in order to not de-optimize the object in the end of the day. However, if you measure it, let's say, I think async hooks uses it a lot. They hide stack frames. If you create a benchmark using that, you might see the real difference between your implementation and the main one, and check if there are regression. My only concern is that sometimes the micro benchmark won't show you the real truth. And that's why I'm a bit worried, because errors, besides that it completely break changes if you change a single line on that, the regression can be significant if you play with the objects. And if I remember, you were reducing the max stack size and then reverting it back in order to improve performance. It in fact will improve in the micro benchmark, but I'm not entirely sure how it behaves in end-of-end benchmarks. Let's say that you want to create a good task would be to perform a benchmark with the fetch implementation, because fetch contains a lot of they throw a lot of errors even in happy paths. So that's one of the performance issues of fetch, is because it throws errors. So you can basically measure if that has impact or not.
I can tell you one thing. What you basically also do is, in the current main branch, is this for some UV exception and DNS exception and all the other errors. It's that we call capture larger stack trace, and capture larger stack trace is actually setting stack trace limit to infinity and reverts it all the time also. So this was a reason why I thought, now maybe this is not this would be not an issue in this place basically, but
that only happens when we use .stack, right?
.stack? No,
Error
always.
.stack.
No, always.
I remember we do lazy loading of the stacks of Node.js of our errors. That was one of the optimizations we did in the past.
Well,
if you don't call error.stack, it will never be called.
It will be called.
If I remember correctly.
I will check it again. So I promise you check it again, because I really want to push this on my agenda basically. But the error.stack, what happens is that what delays is the prepare stack trace call. So what we actually do with side stack frames is basically just generate all the stacks, and then if we ever call .stack and want to get information out of it, then we make prepare stack trace, and then we have some operations. This is also why I'm benching against .stack, and I think in one of those.
I remember that too.
So but like I said, the thing is, what the issue is basically how we improve the performance is basically like, we try to get the limited amount of stack traces to reduce the issue regarding, hey, I can call now I have 100 stack frames in my stack trace, and then I don't use it anyway, I just throw it away, and we still kept in memory. So this is actually the main point, but I will check it. If I really think that is always calling, but I will check it again, because the thing is also a risk is the longer it takes, then the less I have it in mind, and then I have to recheck it. So
no, don't worry. As I said, I will only be able to review your request during the next weekend or the next week. But if someone approves it before, I won't object.
But I will take this thing serious, and I will write a comment, or I will write under it my findings.
Yeah, just make sure to run different benchmarks, like end-to-end benchmarks. Fetch. If you look to the performance parity on Fetch, I created a reproducible benchmark there. You can just run.
Can you send me the link to this, please?
Yes.
Then I will take it.
I think. Let me send in the chat.
Okay.
I think that I don't have the benchmark here. Let me check here. Okay, is the one in the Undich implementation. So it's just the benchmark / benchmark.js in the Undich repo. Let me just send it to you. So you can just comment the other benchmarks and keep only the fetch. That should be enough.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so are there any questions, comments? I want to mention something. So I have an open pull request for improving every path on Node.js, which is right now blocked by an issue in Windows, and I couldn't reproduce it on my Parallels desktop machine. And I mentioned this multiple times in different meetings, so I guess this is also a good place to mention it.
Did you try to get access to the machine?
No, not yet, because I'm going to get an access in a couple of days probably, because I'm going to be onboarded to the build working group. When the time comes, I will try to do it. But I'm not used to Windows at all. Like the last time I used Windows, it was 10 years ago. So if there's a Windows user that wants to help, friend, I'm more than happy.
Is it failing in all Windows platform or specific ones like Windows 2012 server 32 bits?
So it only fails on, let me open it, Windows Fand, and it only fails on Node test binary Windows native suites, and only on 2016-2017 compiled by VS2 2022. So
so that should be easy to reproduce.
Yes, so there's out of 9 configurations, only 2 of them fails.
Can you send me the link in the chat just to take a look?
This is the pull request. This is the real issue. So the issue is around, there's a timeout because one of the 3 of the existing benchmarks depends on a timeout, and because there's a issue where the benchmark couldn't delete the files that it was supposed to delete because of an open connection or something else. I'm not really quite sure. It causes the whole benchmark to fail, and it is only reproducible using the code that I've written, which basically throws the error. Maybe because we are throwing the error too fast, this timeout issue occurs, because previously this wasn't the case.
This is failing when you are using the experimental feature, right?
Yes, I think so. There are 2 benchmarks that fails, and both of them is the experimental features, I guess.
Okay, so that's related to the permission model, I guess.
Yes, might be. Yeah.
So I think that should be easy to solve. Let me see if both are related to the permission model. Okay, write file, concurrent. I can only see one error in the suite.
If you go back to the first Windows native suites, there's 2 test results that fails. The same thing, test benchmark FS. Why did I had a balloon in my video?
Okay, but the stack I have here is the one I will send in the chat. I don't know if it will be formatted or not.
Same thing, yes. That's the issue.
Is the benchmark file is not running exactly one configuration in test. So I think this is something wrong with your benchmark file. Let me see the request.
So
did you try to rebase on main?
No, but I don't need to, because Adu said that request CI, if you do request CI, once again, it always rebases from the main, so you don't need to. So I called the request CI a couple of days ago. That's why the error message changed, I guess. But I still don't know what's the cause of this.
Sorry, just to noise here.
That's fine.
I believe because the error seems like very easy to reproduce. That's weird because that's not happening in another machine.
So I have added specific code to not run a benchmark on Windows. That might be the issue, but it succeeds on other Windows builds, but not on this.
Okay, let me check one thing here. Just a sec. So this is failing on write file promises, right?
Yeah, I didn't touch that file, so that's an existing benchmark.
Yeah, and that's weird because we don't use the permission model there. I think this is the message is just wrong.
Yeah, so the issue is that benchmark creates a file and then tries to remove it when the benchmark finishes. But because the benchmark finishes and the unlink sync function is called like back to back, but without any set timeout or anything, it can't delete the file that has an open file connection, file handler. So this was the original issue, and somehow we end up with there's benchmark file not running exactly one configuration in test.
That's cool. That's very weird because the message makes no sense with the actual behavior.
Yep.
I know what the reason is. We have to slow down the FS sync calls so that the benchmark can pass.
Yes. So is there any Windows users in this call?
The only thing I can assume is like if you don't rebase on main, even if you request CI, they might use the same C cache or the cache they use on Windows to rebuild Node. So regardless of you change the file or not, that specific binary part of the binary won't change unless you rebase and make it from scratch. I mean,
I will do it right now because like I literally spent 3 weeks on it, like 2 to 3 weeks on it. So I will just take anything and I will try anything right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the past, in the past, something quite similar happened to me. I think it was on macOS. I had to rebase and basically reset the cache of that machine because the C cache was not getting the new updates properly. So this is just a suggestion, just a guess.
Yeah, okay. I just like force pushed it and I'm requesting CI. So if it fails, I will send you a message and ask him for more help.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. So I've added this to the notes as well. If there's any Windows user that can reproduce this and help a brother out, I'm more than happy.
I'm talking internally at Nearform to bring someone else to the build team to help with the build because that's quite problematic. Actually, it's a lot of time and we don't have a lot of people to work on that. And I have asked them if we have a Windows wizard or something. Nobody answered me, so I don't have a hope. But
I was just getting hopeful, and then you said like nobody.
One thing that I suggested, because on every release we don't run performance test, benchmark test on every release, because the reason is that it takes a lot of time to run on every suite. One suggestion I created a long time ago actually, was to create a distributed benchmark in the build group. However, I don't have bandwidth to work on that, but I might get a bandwidth from someone in your forum to work on that. So if we just shrink a bit the benchmark to make, like, remove the benchmarks that makes no sense and include ones that is missing, I think would be great. So we can parallelize the benchmark in different machines, and instead of waiting 24 hours for the full benchmark suite, we wait, I don't know, 3 hours maximum. So that's the idea. I don't know if that's related to the performance, but for sure the benchmarks is.
By the way, I opened a similar issue around 2 weeks ago in the Node repository because it was taking 11 hours to complete the FS benchmarks, only FS benchmarks.
Yeah, that's quite expected because we're running a single machine and we run it 30 times for every configuration on every binary. So the FS contains multiple configurations. So
yeah, but like even with multiple configurations, most of the time you don't need to run them more than 100,000 times, and most of these benchmarks, they run it maybe 10 million times, and after a threshold it's all same, unless it's extremely flaky. But
we run it.
Yeah,
sorry,
you can continue.
We run it 30 times because we use probabilistic approach, that which is null hypothesis, to generate the stars or the confidence of the benchmark. That's why we run it 30 times on every configuration. That's the probabilistic approach. We cannot reduce. I mean, we can, but that won't be so reliable.
The 30 times is okay, but like each iteration also runs 1,000,000 times, then it takes a lot more time. And for me, benchmarks is a way of developing, like it's a part of my development process. And if a benchmark takes maybe 30 minutes on my super high-end, extremely costly computer, then I see that that's a problem. But maybe that's me. That's why I opened this issue, so that maybe we can reduce it.
There is also another issue here, if I may say. If you expose a new expose a function in the new branch, and then you use it to benchmark something, then it results also in the case that the old node doesn't expose this function, so it gets it's not a function error, super slow everything, and yeah, of course it says, and it says super fast, right, in the new implementation. But the thing is that the benchmarks fail, and I think here there should be also something patched maybe in the future regarding that. If you expose a function which is not an old node, it should actually kind of detect this maybe. I don't know.
But this is mainly because like in my honest opinion, benchmarking internals shouldn't be done unless you are working on that task on yourself. Because like if you benchmark every single non-user facing functions, then it also limits, because someone comes and says that, okay, I want to refactor this function and merge three things, and then a different benchmark fails because of it. So I think we should keep the benchmarks extremely limited to the public facing APIs, because you can improve a function 10,000 percentage, but if it doesn't have a user facing implementation or user facing impact, then it doesn't make sense to me, at least.
So just bringing the okay, go ahead.
Yeah, only a small point. So regards to this benchmarking and using user facing functions, I've seen two issues in the core repository which were talking about adding a real world benchmark. Someone was talking about having already a real world benchmark ready, and it uses some different various different libraries which are used popularly like Next.js or something like that, and using those as a like use like say a user facing a real world benchmark, and for us we have some small set of micro benchmarks to help us in our development. So I don't think those issues received much of a comment, so there's that, like similar to how browsers have it. So Chrome, WebKit, and Firefox, all three of them follow the speedometer benchmark, right? So if something similar could be there for Node, I think that would be much more helpful in terms of not just comparing Node, but comparing against other runtimes too, because they are also supposed to support all these projects, commonly used projects and stuff. Yeah, so
Yeah, but that's why that's that just falls in the interoperability thing, right? Like we Node.js expose a few modules or a few use case that other runtime does not expose, and they do the same. So once I think that would be a good discussion for, I don't know, Winter CG or something like that. The a working group focused on all the runtimes, and so they define exactly which benchmark should be created on every runtime. Just to bring back a bit of the benchmark issue that we were talking about. I don't think that reducing how many times it will run solves the problem. It will just get more unreliable data. I think the point is we have a lot of configurations that makes no sense, like increasing from n from 10, 100, and 1,000. I don't think that makes sense. If we can just go directly to 1,000, if we just shrink a bit the configurations we have on the benchmarks, that will reduce the benchmark a lot, the benchmark time a lot. For instance, if you go to the file system, which is one of the more offending ones, and go to the write file promise, you see that we have a size of 2, we have a size of 1 megabyte, we have a size of maximum Linux socket, and then we have a 2 megabytes of size. So I believe that makes no sense to have a benchmark for 1 megabyte and 2 megabytes and one like very big. The 2 megabytes can be just removed. The size 2 can be just removed. And by just doing that, we are reducing by 120 execution times in benchmarks. So I think that's the point, you know.
Or we do it like Bun does and just make micro benchmarks and say we are really fast.
Yeah.
I think comparing Node to other runtimes is good for finding regressions or performance impacts. But if we want to keep track and improve ourselves and not accept any defeat or win, depending on how our performance benchmarks, we should always keep comparing ourselves with ourselves, because runtimes, they'll change. Anyone will come and keeping track of it. Like we know what's happening with canary in the gold mine, CTIGM happening. So I think we are on the correct path. But yeah, I don't think that any benchmark that's run on the latest and like a new machine should take more than 2-3 minutes. But that's a discussion for another day with Rafael, I guess.
Sorry, I was reading another thread, sorry.
I was just telling about like the whole reducing the benchmark time is like it's another topic that another for another meeting we should discuss it with you.
But I agree with you regarding this 2-3 minutes. Myself, I also like if I write my benchmarks for Node, for example, then I use a E1, E7, 1, E8, check it if there is some, because the higher it is in these computational extensive tasks, not something like resource or input output hungry operations, you go up and then you see you lower them until it's kind of something bearable, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you to reduce that stuff, because it doesn't make any sense to have like 30 minutes of checking the file system if we are not calculating pi or something like this. We don't need a water boiler and a server rack, basically.
Yeah. And also because we can't see how our benchmark perform until the benchmark finishes, because of the Node benchmark compare implementation, it's extremely time consuming to wait 30 minutes and see that, okay, it's like 10% slower. So that's why I'm much interested. But anyways, yeah.
But you can use filters for that, right? Like if you want just to check a few things, you can pass the runs to reduce. The only thing is that it's quite problematic to, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a single benchmark in FS folder that takes 10 hours.
So yeah, we just need to split that in different files.
Yeah, but yeah, regardless, it's all benchmarking the same thing and reducing the probability. So if you go for higher runs, you reduce the probability of flakiness. But I think I'm okay with 99% of like probability instead of 99.99. But yeah. Anyways, if anybody wants to open a PR and change those kinds of things, feel free to do it, and I'm more than happy to approve. And I guess Rafael's more than happy to discuss more about it, which is the ideal scenario, because discussing is a really great way of consensus. So yeah, are there any comments before we close today's session? Yes, Andre?
Hello.
Hello.
Can we talk a little bit about the issue 111 about moving certain FS utils to C++?
Yes, definitely.
I made a PR moving the function getValidMode to C++, right? And there is everything works fine, but there is one function that isn't working correctly. That is fs.promise.cp. this function is calling asynchronously now, and like I saw a lot of people discussing in about this issue here, and I think I need some direction about what should I do next.
So perfect. I was going to review that PR after this meeting. So the main issue that I will just share the PR in here so anybody wants to look at it. So the main issue is that it's not about promises or utils, but in the FS callback implementations, we create an FS rec callback and then we pass the onComplete. But before doing it, we check for the validation. So if you do it inside FS rec callback, you validate it in the callback itself instead of the synchronous approach. So the thing is that the main reason that I didn't try to optimize any function except synchronous functions in FS file, the file system module, is that I didn't want to interfere the whole functionality in there. So I recommend just getting rid of the changes except the sync functions, because the sync functions is always trigger a synchronous function in the C++ implementation, and you can go ahead and check for the get valid mode there. But if it has a callback, then if you check it in the callback itself, which is going to be the process on nexttick, or whenever the thread pool is available, then it's going to be a problem because the error will be thrown asynchronously, and that's one of the concerns that was mentioned in this PR. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, like, I should get rid of the changes of just for fspromise.cp.
I mean, so you have several changes inside non-async functions. For example, access function, which takes a callback, but you validate it inside binding X. So like any function that executes the validation of the like the get valid mode function outside of the synchronous path, I think you should remove it from this PR. And when the time comes, we should take a much more in-depth approach about how we should validate and run synchronously this whole situation, because that requires removing the whole FSREC callback implementation and just passing everything that we have to C++ function, and it gets the callback as a parameter and executes that. Right now, we depend on a C++ class called FSREC callback to define the onComplete callback, and then we pass that object to there. So it's extremely costly. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. And I think there's a conflict in your PR as well. And if you can do it and tag me, I'll be more than happy to review it and give feedback.
Yeah, yes, there is a conflict, and yes, it's just three conflicts. I don't know, like the CI here is getting three unsuccessful checks.
I think if you get rid of the async validation, the input validation, the errors will be much more less, because if you introduce async context, the CIs might be flaky.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Are there any other comments or questions before we close today's meeting? Perfect. So thank you for coming. And Andre, if you can put your name to the meeting notes as well. I see that you didn't. That would be perfect. And thank you for coming. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.